If I was to ask you, who is the UK's biggest criminal, what name comes to mind? Britain's most prolific serial killer, Harold Shipman, 250 victims. Jack the Ripper, 5. This man, somewhere between 200,000 and 1 million. Shipman got life in prison. This man got a knighthood. The Lancet estimated 655,000 excess deaths in Iraq by 2006. That was 3 years into an 11-year war. Opinion research business put it over 1 million by 2008. Iraq body count, the most conservative methodology, still documents over 200,000. And for his contribution, Tony Blair received the Order of the Garter, founded 1348, limited to 24 members plus the sovereign. 1 million people signed a petition against it. The government noted their concerns and ignored them entirely. Order of the Garter, you know who else is in it? The King, the actual King of England. Same club, same little ceremony, same fancy sash. Shipman killed 250 people, he got a cell. Blair helped kill 1 million, he got matching outfits with the King. That is not a justice system, that is a loyalty card. Not only is he not in prison, you pay for his security, £6 million per year. That is £115,000 every week. More than 20 officers following him on private business trips to Kazakhstan, Libya, Saudi Arabia, first-class flights, 5-star hotels, all on your money, while he collects checks from the countries that benefited from the war. £6 million a year to protect Tony Blair. 6 million. You know what that is? That is the NHS waiting list for a small town, following one man to Kazakhstan so he can cash a check, and we pay for it. We are his roadies. We are the roadies for a war criminal's farewell tour, carrying his bags, setting up the stage, and at the end of the night he gets the groupies and we get the bus home. By 1995, Tony Blair had been an MP for 12 years. He had risen through Labour, become Shadow Home Secretary, and won the party leadership after John Smith's sudden death in 1994. But Labour had not won since 1974, 4 consecutive defeats. Everyone knew why. You could not win without the press, and Rupert Murdoch was the press he owns. The Sun, the Times, the Sun on Sunday, the Sunday Times, the New York Post, and his network reaches Australia. Are you starting to see why permission is required? Who really decides the outcome, the audience or the storyteller? So Blair flew 25 hours to Hayman Island, Australia, a private resort in the Great Barrier Reef, to meet one man. He flew 25 hours to Australia, 25 hours, to meet a man who owns newspapers. You know how desperate you have to be to sit in a plane for 25 hours? That is not a meeting, that is a pilgrimage, that is Mecca for men with no principles. He landed, kissed the ring, got back on the plane. And 2 years later, funny thing, all those newspapers suddenly loved him. Totally unrelated, pure coincidence. Just like how my dog loves me right after I feed him, no connection whatsoever. Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating explained how these arrangements work. You can do deals with Murdoch without ever saying a deal is done. Nods and winks, nothing in writing, plausible deniability. Blair's own communications director Lance Price later confirmed it in his memoir. A deal had been done, although with nothing in writing. Every Murdoch paper switches to Labour. The Sun runs, The Sun backs Blair. Landslide victory, the biggest Labour win in history. Blair's Communications Act relaxes media ownership rules. Insiders called it the Murdoch Clause, specifically enabling foreign nationals to own British television, benefiting exactly one person. Blair becomes godfather to Murdoch's daughter Grace. They baptise her in the River Jordan, the actual River Jordan, where John the Baptist baptised Jesus Christ. Murdoch's staff discover his wife Wendy Deng's diary. In it, she describes her feelings for Tony Blair, his charm, his clothes, his physique, his eyes, what she called his power on the stage. Murdoch filed for divorce immediately. He later confirmed to Fortune magazine that Blair had stayed at his California ranch with Wendy in October 2012 and April 2013, both occasions while Murdoch was overseas. When an Economist journalist raised this with Blair, the magazine reported that he struck his coffee cup against the saucer so hard it spilled across the table. A dark patch of perspiration appeared beneath his arm. Make of that what you will. But Murdoch was not even his first scandal. That came in 1997, his first year in office. January 1997, Bernie Ecclestone donates £1 million to Labour. October 1997, Blair meets him at Downing Street, November 1997. Formula One receives an exemption from the tobacco advertising ban. Every other sport had to comply. Formula One did not. Blair told the public the decision came 2 weeks after the meeting. In 2008, Freedom of Information requests revealed the decision was made at the meeting itself. When questioned about this at the time, Blair's response was memorable. "I'm a pretty straight sort of guy." Remember that phrase? It comes up again. September 2002, the government publishes its dossier on Iraqi weapons. The notorious dodgy dossier, it claimed Iraq could deploy weapons of mass destruction within 45 minutes of an order. 45 minutes. Saddam could destroy us all in 45 minutes. That is less time than it takes to get a table at Nando's on a Saturday. You could be halfway through your peri-peri chicken and boom, weapons of mass destruction. Except there were not any. There were no weapons. We invaded a country, killed 1 million people, because Tony Blair had a deadline to meet and facts were not going to get in the way. Hans Blix, chief UN weapons inspector, the man actually in Iraq looking for these weapons, told the Security Council in February 2003, "One must not jump to the conclusion that they exist." He later said Blair's claims were simply not an accurate reflection of the intelligence. The Chilcot inquiry took 7 years and produced 2.6 million words. It found the intelligence had not established beyond doubt that Saddam continued producing weapons of mass destruction. Sir John Chilcot told Parliament that a reasonable man could not have come to the conclusion Mr. Blair did. Robin Cook saw it clearly. The Foreign Secretary resigned on March 17, 2003, 3 days before the invasion. His speech received the first standing ovation in the history of the House of Commons. He said Iraq probably has no weapons of mass destruction in the commonly understood sense. He predicted casualties in the thousands. It was hundreds of thousands. Cook died 2 years later. His gravestone reads, "I may not have succeeded in halting the war, but I did secure the right of Parliament to decide on war." What Cook did not know, what none of us knew until Chilcot, was that Blair had already committed. A memo to George Bush, dated July 28, 2002, 8 months before the invasion, contained 5 words: "I will be with you, whatever." Whatever. He wrote whatever to George Bush about going to war. That is not diplomacy. That is a teenage girl responding to her mum. "Will you clean your room?" Whatever. Shall we invade Iraq and kill 1 million people? Whatever. 8 months before the invasion. While he is on television telling us, "Oh, nothing is decided, we are still exploring options," he had already sent the text, "Whatever, send troops." February 15th, 2003, 1 million people march in London, the largest protest in British history. Blair ignored them. He had made his promise. Whatever. 179 British soldiers died, over 4,000 Americans, between 200,000 and 1 million Iraqi civilians, depending on the methodology. Kofi Annan, UN Secretary General, was asked in 2004 whether the invasion was illegal. His answer was yes. We went to Iraq to stop weapons of mass destruction. That was the reason, the whole reason. Saddam has chemical weapons. We have to stop him. Except he did not have any. We looked everywhere, no chemical weapons. Funny thing, you know who did use chemical weapons in Iraq? Us, we did. November 2004, Fallujah. White phosphorus burns through skin to the bone, cannot be extinguished with water, melts human beings. The Pentagon first denied it, then admitted it, then said it was only used for illumination. We were lighting up the city. With a substance that melts flesh, we invaded a country to stop chemical weapons that did not exist, and then used chemical weapons. That is not irony. Irony is when something is a bit unexpected. This is a war crime dressed up as a rescue mission. We were the weapons of mass destruction. We were what we said we were looking for. The BAE Systems scandal shows precisely who Blair was willing to protect. Al-Yamamah, Arabic for the dove, was the name given to arms deals worth 40 to 80 billion pounds between Britain and Saudi Arabia. The Serious Fraud Office identified £6 billion in corrupt payments. The Serious Fraud Office found £6 billion in bribes. 6 billion, and they were about to prove it. They had the documents, they had the trail, they were this close. And then Blair shut it down, just closed it, because a Saudi prince asked nicely. Well, I say nicely. He threatened to stop sharing intelligence about terrorism. The Saudis threatening us about terrorism. 15 of the 19 9/11 hijackers were Saudi. That is not a threat, that is a joke. That is like your drug dealer threatening to stop giving you health advice. Prince Bandar bin Sultan received £30 million every quarter for over a decade. That is £1.2 billion to one man. His cousin, Prince Turki, received £7 million annually in what were termed lifestyle payments, Rolls Royces, yachts. On one occasion, a chartered 747 to transport shopping. BAE funded his daughter's 2-month honeymoon around the world. The SFO was days from obtaining Swiss bank records when Prince Bandar visited Downing Street. He carried a letter threatening to end intelligence cooperation if the investigation continued. Robert Wardle, director of the Serious Fraud Office, described it to PBS Frontline. It is blackmail. It is not nice, but that is where we are. Threats were made, and I had to decide whether to give in. Blair shut down the investigation. He told Parliament, "I take full responsibility. I do not regret it then, and I do not regret it now. I am a pretty straight sort of guy," his words. Shutting down a £6 billion fraud investigation because a Saudi prince told him to, pretty straight. Shortly afterwards, the SFO reported that 32,000 pages of documents and 81 audio tapes had gone missing. Prince Bandar had addressed corruption allegations years earlier in a PBS interview. His defence is worth hearing in full.
"I would be offended if I thought we had a monopoly on corruption. In the last 30 years, we implemented a program approximately $400 billion. You could not have done it for less than $350 billion. If you tell me we got corrupted with $50 billion, I will tell you yes, but I will take that any time. Who are you to tell me this? So what? We did not invent corruption. This happened since Adam and Eve. Adam and Eve were in heaven and had hanky-panky and had to go to earth. This is human nature. We are not as bad as you think."
$50 billion. He admitted to $50 billion in corruption, and his defence, his actual legal defence, was Adam and Eve in the garden with the apple. He said, and I quote, "They had hanky-panky and had to go to earth." That is his argument. Original sin, the fall of man. Therefore I can steal $50 billion. You cannot argue with that logic because there is no logic. That is not a defence, that is a nativity play performed by a man in a gold palace. And Blair heard that, looked him in the eye and said, "Yes, sir, I will shut down the investigation, sir. Anything else, sir?" In 2007, General Wesley Clark, former NATO Supreme Allied Commander, revealed something remarkable. 10 days after September 11th, a Pentagon general showed him a memo. It described plans to remove the governments of 7 countries in 5 years: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Iran. Those 7 countries represent approximately 90% of nations under comprehensive US and UK sanctions today. The only notable exception is North Korea, which possesses nuclear weapons. 7 countries in 5 years, written on a memo 10 days after 9/11, Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Iran. And people said, oh, that is a conspiracy theory, that is ridiculous. And now, 20 years later, let us check the list, shall we? Iraq invaded, Syria destroyed, Libya slave markets, Somalia bombed, Sudan split in half, Iran sanctioned to death, Lebanon currently on fire, 7 for 7. That is not a conspiracy theory, that is a to-do list. The only country not destroyed is North Korea. You know why? Nuclear weapons. They have them. That is the lesson. That is the actual foreign policy of the Western world. Get nukes or get invaded. That should be on a poster at the UN. Consider what happened to each. Iraq invaded 2003, hundreds of thousands dead, the Islamic State emerged from the chaos. Syria, civil war with Western-backed rebels, 500,000 dead, the largest refugee crisis since the Second World War. Libya, NATO intervention 2011, Gaddafi killed. By 2017, CNN documented open slave markets, human beings sold at auction. Somalia, US military operations ongoing since 2007. Sudan, divided into 2 nations, South Sudan remains in civil war. Iran, subject to the most comprehensive sanctions regime in the world. Lebanon, currently under military assault. 7 countries, 7 for 7. The pattern speaks for itself. June 2007, Blair leaves office, immediately appointed Middle East peace envoy by the quartet representing the UN, US, EU and Russia. The architect of the region's destabilization, placed in charge of its reconciliation. He leaves office and they make him Middle East peace envoy. Peace, the man who just helped destroy Iraq, is now in charge of peace. That is like making the iceberg captain of the Titanic. Oh, you sank the ship? Wonderful, here is another ship. That is not a job appointment. That is a punchline. Somewhere there is a committee that made that decision and not one of them said, hang on, are we sure about this? January 2008, JP Morgan, £2 to £4 million annually. March 2008, Zurich Insurance, £500,000 annually. February 2009, Kuwait, £8 million annually for governance advice. July 2009, UAE Sovereign Wealth Fund Mubadala, £1 million annually. November 2010, a leaked contract with PetroSaudi revealed payments of £41,000 monthly plus 2% commission on deals. The contract included a clause prohibiting any public disclosure of his involvement. Libya deserves particular attention. March 2004, while still Prime Minister, Blair met Gaddafi in a tent outside Tripoli, the deal in the desert. Gaddafi surrendered his nuclear program. British oil companies secured contracts. What remained hidden at the time was that MI6 was simultaneously kidnapping Libyan dissidents and delivering them to Gaddafi's intelligence services for torture. Among them, Abdel Hakim Belhaj and his pregnant wife, rendered from Malaysia. When Tripoli fell in 2011, documents emerged including a fax from MI6 officer Mark Allen to his Libyan counterpart. It read, "This was the least we could do for you and Libya to demonstrate the remarkable relationship we have built." The least they could do, delivering a pregnant woman to torturers. After leaving office, Blair made 6 private visits to Libya aboard Gaddafi's personal aircraft. A senior Libyan Investment Authority official told the Sunday Telegraph their purpose plainly. Blair's visits were purely lobby visits for banking deals with JP Morgan. Documentary evidence exists. A December 2008 email from JP Morgan Vice Chairman Lord Renwick discussed finalising terms before Mr. Blair's visit to Tripoli. The transaction in question was worth £1.3 billion. JP Morgan's projected fees were 25 to 50 million. When the 2011 revolution began, Blair telephoned Gaddafi personally. According to Hillary Clinton's leaked emails, he advised, "If you have a safe place to go, you should go there." Kazakhstan, $29 million in total for advising President Nazarbayev, a leader who secured 98% in his final election. December 2011, the Zhanaozen massacre. Security forces opened fire on striking oil workers. Official figures acknowledged 14 dead. Workers reported up to 70, over 800 wounded. Blair had signed his advisory contract in November 2011, 1 month before the massacre. His response was not to resign, it was to draft a speech. A letter leaked to the Telegraph, dated July 2012, on official office of Tony Blair stationery, offered suggested text for Nazarbayev's address at Cambridge University.
Dear Mr. President, here is a suggestion for Cambridge. Meathead on the Zhanaozen issue. These events, tragic though they were, should not obscure the enormous progress Kazakhstan has made. Best way for Western media.
His client shot protesters, actually shot them in the street. And Blair's response was to write him a speech. He sent a letter, "Dear Mr. President, here is how to spin the massacre. These events, tragic though they were, that is not PR, that is accessory, after the fact. You shot workers, asking for better wages, and Tony Blair is at home thinking, how do we frame this for Cambridge? Maybe lead with the economic growth figures, bury the corpses in paragraph 3. Human rights? Watch described Blair as shameless. I am a pretty straight sort of guy, writing PR for a dictator to spin a massacre of workers. Very straight, completely straight." Serbia presents a remarkable case study. Blair led NATO's 78-day bombing campaign against Belgrade. Blair was hired to advise Serbian Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić on modernization and EU integration. During the 1999 bombing, Vučić served as Serbia's information minister. In that capacity, he edited a publication whose title translates as English Gay Fart Tony Blair. In 1999, Vučić published a book called English Gay Fart Tony Blair. That is a real title, you can look it up, English Gay Fart. And in 2015, that same man hired Tony Blair as his advisor. 16 years, that is the journey. From English Gay Fart to Please Sir, help us join Europe. And Blair took the meeting, he took the money, he did not even bring it up. No professional pride whatsoever. Someone publishes a book calling you a gay fart and you take their check. That is not forgiveness. That is a price list. The explanation is straightforward. The United Arab Emirates paid for both the Serbian and Albanian contracts, a third country funding Blair's advice to 2 others. Azerbaijan, 2009, Blair flew to Baku at the expense of businessman Nizami Piriev, who was subsequently arrested for financial crimes. The fee for a single speech was $255,000. WikiLeaks cables described President Aliyev as possessing a Sonny Corleone temper. Blair praised his very positive and exciting vision for the country. The speech was delivered at a methanol plant. Methanol produces formaldehyde, a recognized carcinogen. Blair told the audience that until he examined what formaldehyde does, he had no idea how many parts of his life were governed by this substance, $250,000, to stand in a chemical plant in Azerbaijan and praise formaldehyde, a known carcinogen. I had no idea how many parts of my life were governed by this substance. That is not a speech. That is an ad read. That is a hostage video for money. We'll say anything, have teleprompter, we'll travel. $250,000 to praise a carcinogen for an autocrat. Saudi Arabia, 2017. The Tony Blair Institute signed with the Saudi Ministry of Information to support Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman's Vision 2030. By 2018, the Institute had received $10 to $12 million from the Saudi government. October 2018. Jamal Khashoggi, a Washington Post columnist, entered the Saudi consulate in Istanbul to collect marriage documents. He was murdered and dismembered. US intelligence concluded that Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman personally ordered the killing. The Tony Blair Institute continued working with Saudi Arabia. It continues to this day. They murdered a journalist, cut him up with a bone saw in a consulate, and Blair's Institute kept working with them, kept cashing the checks. His statement said the program of change is of immense and positive importance. That is not a statement, that is an invoice. They dismembered a man for writing newspaper columns, and Tony Blair's response was, yes, but have you seen their economic reforms? Very exciting. Lot of opportunity there. Ignore the bone saw. Egypt, 2013, General Sisi's military coup, the Rabah massacre. Human Rights Watch called it probably the largest killing of demonstrators in a single day in recent history. Between 600 and 2,600 dead, tens of thousands imprisoned. Blair's assessment of the situation was succinct, a fantastic opportunity. A former associate explained his thinking to The Guardian. For him, it combines an existential battle against Islamism and mouth-watering business opportunities. Mouth-watering, their words, not mine. The present day, Blair has received payments from JP Morgan for 17 consecutive years. Larry Ellison, founder of Oracle and the fifth wealthiest person alive, has donated £257 million to the Tony Blair Institute. JP Morgan and Oracle have maintained a strategic partnership since 2021. September 2025, Lighthouse Reports interviewed 29 current and former Institute staff. A senior advisor stated that when it comes to tech policy, Oracle and TBI are inseparable. Staff described it as a sales operation. Kenyan government officials, subjected to repeated Oracle presentations, took to calling Ellison Uncle Larry. February 2025, Dubai. On stage, Ellison told Blair that the NHS has incredible population data, but it is fragmented. 2 weeks later, the Institute published a report describing NHS data as fragmented and unfit for purpose. Professor Gina Neff of Queen Mary University observed that TBI is not advocating building capacity within the NHS. They are saying let us outsource to their associates. Oracle holds £1.1 billion in UK government contracts, 185 active agreements, 100 million from the NHS in 2023 alone. NHS data is valued at £10 billion annually. July 2025. The Financial Times revealed that Institute staff participated in discussions regarding a post-conflict plan for Gaza called the Great Trust. The proposal included a Trump Riviera coastal development, an Elon Musk smart manufacturing zone, blockchain trading systems, and artificial islands modelled on Dubai. It assumed 25% of Palestinians, approximately 500,000 people, would leave voluntarily in exchange for $9,000 payments. That is not reconstruction, it is ethnic cleansing with a departure bonus. They were planning to ethnically cleanse Gaza and build a Trump Riviera with artificial islands and a Musk smart zone. You could not make it up because no one would believe you. And when they got caught, the Blair Institute said their staff were present, but in listening mode. That is not a defense, that is a setting on Spotify. We were not participating in the ethnic cleansing. We were just in the room taking notes, very quiet, listening mode. If you are in a meeting about moving 500,000 people for $9,000 each, you are not in listening mode, you are in complicity mode. When asked why Blair remained involved in Middle East affairs, journalist Ash Sarkar offered a concise explanation: because Satan was unavailable. October 2025, President Trump proposed Blair for his Middle East Peace Board. December 2025. Blair was removed from consideration after objections from Arab governments. When the autocrats you have advised for 2 decades decline to work with you, it represents a particular kind of failure. The financial architecture merits examination. Windrush Ventures Limited flows into Windrush number 2 LLP, which flows into Windrush number 3 LP. The final entity is registered under the Limited Partnership Act of 1907. Legislation predating the First World War, the Titanic, and women's suffrage. Under its provisions, there is no obligation to publish accounts. A parallel structure called Firerush operates identically. Tax Research UK examined available records and identified £20 million in income against £470,000 in tax, an effective rate of 2.35%. 2.35%. His effective tax rate is 2.35%. You pay more tax on a sandwich, you pay more tax on a packet of biscuits. This man has made hundreds of millions from dictators and banks, and his tax rate is lower than VAI on a Twix. And his structures are called Windrush, named after the ship that brought Caribbean immigrants here, the Windrush generation, and people invited to Britain after the war. Come help us rebuild, we said. They came from Jamaica, Trinidad, Barbados, because they worked in the NHS, drove the buses, paid taxes for 50 years. Then Blair's government created the Hostile Environment Policy, and under that policy, Paulette Wilson, who came here aged 10, worked in the House of Commons canteen, served food to MPs, was detained and nearly deported. Anthony Bryan, 60 years in Britain, detained twice, lost his job, lost everything. Hubert Howard came here in 1960, was denied NHS cancer treatment because he could not prove he was British. He died. These are real people, real names. And Tony Blair named his money, hiding, companies after them. Windrush Ventures, Windrush number 2, Windrush number 3. He took their name. The name of the people, his policies destroyed, and used it to hide money from dictators. That is not a business decision. That is making a skin suit out of your victims. Blair has claimed his wealth does not exceed £20 million. Property records suggest otherwise. The family controls 38 properties, 10 houses, 27 flats, a Hyde Park townhouse valued between 7.5 and 9 million, a Buckinghamshire mansion at 8 million. Conservative estimates place the portfolio between 27 and 60 million pounds in property alone. The 2021 Pandora Papers revealed the Blairs acquired a £6.5 million London townhouse by purchasing an offshore British Virgin Islands company rather than the property directly. This avoided stamp duty, legal but noteworthy given Blair's earlier statement as Labour leader. We should not make our tax rules a playground for revenue avoiders and tax abusers. The Tony Blair Institute reported $161 million in revenue for 2024. Blair owns 100%. He states he draws no salary. When you own the entirety of an organisation, salary is beside the point. It operates as a family enterprise. Albanian Treasury records show that Sherry Blair's firm Omnia Strategy received €418,000 from Albania's finance ministry in September 2022 alone. During the same period, Tony Blair was advising the Albanian government through the institute. Omnia Strategy is currently engaged in litigation, arguing that taxation of landlords constitutes a breach of their human rights. The documented payments: JP Morgan, 34 to 68 million pounds over 17 years, Kazakhstan, $29 million, Kuwait, £27 million, UAE Mubadala, $1 million annually since 2009, Zurich, $500,000 annually, Saudi Petro Saudi, $41,000 monthly plus commission, Saudi Vision 2030, $10 to $12 million, Azerbaijan, $255,000 per appearance, speaking engagements, over 9 million, Book Advance, 4.6 million, Ellison to TBI, 257 million, TBI revenue 2024, $161 million, wholly owned, property portfolio, 27 to 60 million. Effective tax rate on consultancy income, 35%. Now let us return to where we began. The Rome Statute of the International Criminal Court defines 4 crimes with no statute of limitations: genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, and the crime of aggression, defined as the planning, preparation, initiation, or execution by a person in a position to direct the political or military action of a state of an act of aggression constituting a manifest violation of the Charter of the United Nations. The Nuremberg Tribunal called aggression the supreme international crime. It contains within itself the accumulated evil of the whole. A war launched without UN authorization, intelligence that had not established its claims beyond doubt, a private commitment made 8 months before invasion while the public was told nothing was decided. 1 million people in the streets ignored, between 200,000 and 1 million dead. Then payment from the banks, from the dictators, from the countries reshaped by the conflict, protected by police you fund, sheltered by structures designed before your grandparents were born. I have presented documented facts. The conclusions are yours to draw. But understand this, if you believe this is unique to Tony Blair, you are living in an imaginary reality. If you believe other leaders operate differently, you are living in an imaginary reality. Blair is not an aberration. He is the template, the revolving door, the advisory fees, the tech donations, the offshore structures, the family billing arrangements, the honours that keep coming regardless. This is how power operates in Britain, in America, everywhere. 7 countries on a list written 10 days after September 11th. 7 countries invaded, bombed, sanctioned, or destroyed. The only exception being the one with nuclear weapons. The difference with Blair is simply that we have the documentation, the leaked emails, the Chilcot transcripts, the Pandora papers, the PBS interviews. The information exists. The question is whether anything will ever be done with it. You know now, you cannot unknow it. The better informed you are, the harder it becomes for someone to look you in the eye, take money from dictators, help start illegal wars, shut down fraud investigations, write speeches for murderers, and then tell you with a straight face, I am a pretty straight sort of guy. Please subscribe if you found this valuable. And remember, stay informed, stay uncomfortable,